This week, we're celebrating the anniversary of the release of James Sardone's Colors EP. This was released 3 years ago. This is a really special record here for the Wilmington community that something tells me might have missed the radar of a number of folks here in town to kind of understand the significance of this. So first off, James Sardone, let's talk about him. He was the very first rock and roll artist to be on our This Water is Life series. This is the volume 1 that came out with Minds One, and as you can see, James Sardone is listed as the indie rock side of this. James is a really special individual here in Wilmington. If you're not familiar with the Wilmington music scene, and if you are interested in the music Wilmington scene, it's worth noting that James's history really dates back to the 1980s. I remember I was living in Jacksonville, Florida at the time, and being in Florida, I remember hearing about a band called Brickbat back in the late 80s, early 90s. Everyone was really into the North Carolina indie rock scene back then. Bands like Polvo, Superchunk, all that kind of stuff was coming up, and they were all touring through Florida for us, and so that's how we were getting introduced and everything. But in Wilmington, North Carolina, Brickbat was a band that was getting out across the U.S., touring with bands like Jawbox, Jesus Lizard, even the John Spencer Blues Explosion. James Sardone was heading up Brickbat. That was his band. You can look them up. They've got some really great records online. You can find killer 90s indie rock, or if you're into that kind of thing, check it out for sure. But coming from Wilmington, North Carolina, I mean, he was definitely one of the first artists to break out of Wilmington and get out on a national scene and be recognized on a national level. And I think that's really important for people to understand that, that's back in like I said, the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, and then here we are, 2023, he's still releasing killer, amazing music. And I remember when we met James, we met him here in town. Actually, our wives kind of befriended each other first, and then kind of that grew a friendship out of the four of us. And we had them over to dinner here at our house. And I remember Stella, his wife, encouraging James, like, hey, put on some of that music that you've been recording lately. And what he ended up playing at our house for us ended up being what's on this record. And I remember in the moment, I don't know if we were making spaghetti or what we were doing, but I just remember in that moment immediately thinking, like, we got to put this music out. This stuff's amazing. This is really great rock and roll music, and it's what you find on this record. In my opinion, I think James, he's a unique songwriter. He has his own style and he has his own sound. But if you're a fan of stuff like Paul Westerberg's, The Replacements, Big Star, things like that, then you're definitely going to be a fan of what James Sardone does. This particular record, Colors, I think it's really interesting. He tapped into his post-punk era of the 80s, I guess, and really honed in on what I think is more like modern English, New Order. That style of influence is all over this record. But what's so significant about this record too is so this followed the Water record. We put the Water out first, then we followed it with the Colors EP. But we included on here, this is a really cool, it's an EP. It's got 5 songs total. So you've got the title, what I call the title track. It's Colors of Your Brain is the main title of the song, but that obviously is the Colors EP. Then you've got Life of Love, and then Dreaming. If you're familiar with the song title, that's actually the song by Blondie. And if you've seen, so James Sardone performs live here in Wilmington under the band name Sardines. So that's his full band. But the recordings that we've done, they're under the name James Sardone. So, but if you've seen Sardines live, likely you've heard the Blondie song, and it's really a great cover of Dreamin' that they do, and that's on this record as well. And then what we did is on side B of the record here, let's put it up that way, we actually reached out to local indie R&B group De La Noche and asked them to do some remixes of Colors of Your Brain. And this is really cool. This is, again, what kind of takes it further into that New Order, modern English style of influence, is that this is a dance record at the end of the day on side B specifically. And in fact, I think a lot of you guys know that we host a dance party at Underfront, called Let's Dance. I've played this record at our dance nights. In fact, I remember playing it at Waterline specifically, and Chuck Spry, who was in a band with James Sardone, was there dancing that night. He was in a band called Loose Jets. He was a drummer, Loose Jets, with James Sardone. James was a guitarist in that band. I remember playing Modern English, I Melt With You. That's what you got to play. And then playing James Sardone's De La Noche remix, the dance one, the long version. We got a radio edit version, and we got a long version. The long version, mixing it in with Melt With You, and then coming right out of that and putting New Order on the backside of it. And the dance floor was packed the whole time. It was solid. It was going. And I remember after I played James's song and got into New Order, Chuck Spry came up to me, literally came up to the booth. It was like, what was that last song you played? And when I held up the record and showed him James Sardone's name, I don't know, Chuck, if you're watching this, you remember, but you were like, holy crap, that was James Sardone? And that's what we played. We had you guys dancing to that. So actually, as a fun fact, that's one of my favorite things about being a DJ and hosting these dance parties, is that as a record label, guess what, folks? We play our records that we release too. You guys are dancing. We had people dancing to Death Kit last week, actually, at Underfront, which is fun. But this is about James Sardone. This is about Colors. This EP is still available on vinyl. You can pick it up on our website, on link in bio, all that stuff. You can pick this up at any of the record stores here in Wilmington. I think most of them all have it. It's a really killer EP. It's 5 songs total. Again, a killer song of Dreaming on the Other Side. This has been out for 3 years now. If you're any bit interested in the Wilmington music community, this is a record you should absolutely have in your catalog, in your collection. This is definitely, history in the making kind of record. And James Sardone deserves a great amount of respect in this community for all the things that he's done, putting this community on the map, representing Wilmington for all these decades. He's a fantastic guitarist. If you ever get to watch him live, he's killer. Speaking of, Lincoln Morris is on this record as well. Another fantastic Wilmington guitarist. So Lincoln Morris is on here. The cover art for this, by the way, thanks, James, for allowing me to design this. I get to design, one of the things I did when I started the record label was I get to design a lot of these record covers. It's something I like to do. I sort of romanticize about being a graphic designer. And so I appreciate Mr. Sardone allowing me the opportunity to design this for him. The cover art is actually a photograph from Josh Putnam, who you might remember is our cover photographer for our This Water is Life series. So when we got to do the EP for James, obviously I reached out to Mr. Putnam and said, hey, what do we got? Let's, here's the music. Let's see what we got. And Josh Putnam and I came up with this photograph that he took. In fact, if I remember correctly, the original photograph is actually this way, but I turned it this way and made it and did this with it. But anyhow, so cover art by Josh Putnam, or photograph by Josh Putnam, cover art by yours truly here. Music by James Sardone. Check it out. Colors EP. You can find it online. You can find it anywhere digitally that you stream music. You got this killer cover of Dreamin'. You got these killer remixes by De La Noche, who, by the way, that's another band worth checking out from Wilmington. If you guys are fans of the cover band Feather, the yacht rock, soft rock, what do you want to call it, rock cover band Feather in town, or Somerset, who released their record, you definitely need to know about De La Noche. De La Noche, killer indie R&B kind of music, good music for the soul, and they do some really cool remixes here of Colors of Your Brain by James Sardone. So anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed that. Check out James Sardone. Check out Sardines. We love you guys. Peace.